So I recently got a question from a viewer who mentions that her 1-year-old struggles with constipation quite frequently, and she also says that her son loves eating beans, and she's wondering if these could be the cause of his digestive issues. So I figured this would be a really great question to answer as part of the Q&A series, and also a great opportunity to discuss constipation in children, what causes it, as well as what parents can do to help their little ones be more regular. So just that we're on the same page here, let's quickly define what constipation is. So constipation refers to abnormally delayed or infrequent hard stools that are usually accompanied by straining and or pain. And constipation can be organic or functional, and the difference between the two is basically whether we know the cause of the constipation or not. So in organic constipation, we know the cause, and it could be caused by something medical, for example, celiac disease or cystic fibrosis or irritable bowel disease. And then functional constipation is constipation that occurs in the child, but we don't really know exactly what the cause of it is. And functional constipation is the one that I want to discuss today. So it's relatively common. It actually occurs in around 30% of children worldwide. And it's also worth mentioning that up to 84% of the children that are functionally constipated can also experience fecal incontinence. So don't be surprised if your little one soils their underpants from time to time when they're constipated. There's actually a very good explanation to this. Here's what the situation may look like. First, your child may start with holding stools for various reasons, whether it's stress, toilet training, pain, or simply because they just want to keep playing. And this causes the stools to start accumulating in the colon. And the longer the stools stay in the colon, the more water is reabsorbed from them. So this makes them gradually harder and more challenging to pass. In turn, as the stools continue to accumulate, the hard stools stretch the muscles in the rectum, which eventually becomes less sensitive. And over time, the loss of sensation makes these rectal muscles less effective, so your child begins to lose the sensation of needing to pass a stool, which can lead to fecal incontinence, where the softer stools start leaking around the harder plug, soiling your child's underpants. I figured this is definitely worth mentioning because as aggravating as it can feel, I just want to let you know that your child is not doing this on purpose. It's simply a physiological result of the constipation. So when it comes to diagnosing constipation, health professionals will use specific criteria known as the Rome 4 criteria to diagnose it, and this will depend on your child's age. So because it depends on your child's age, I'll put the specific link to the criteria down below so you can check it out in the description box. And the reason it depends on your child's age is because while it may be normal for an infant that's 1 week old to pass about 4 stools per day, when your child is 2 years old, it's more normal to have an average of 2 stools per day. And then when your child turns around 4 years old, they'll start to finally have a pattern that resembles that of adults, which can vary from 3 times a day to 3 times a week. It's also worth mentioning that in breastfed babies, it's also normal to have a long period of time without stools, so for example, up to a week. So do not panic if your breastfed baby hasn't had a poopy diaper in a while, as long as they're not straining or they don't seem in pain when they're passing a stool. That's also absolutely normal. So functional constipation in children can be caused by several things. In babies, it's most often caused by diet changes. For example, an intolerance to cow's milk protein can be the cause of constipation, so keep this in the back of your mind if you notice that constipation started in your baby after you switched from breast milk to formula. And also, introducing solids too early may cause it, especially if you're offering your child a lot of rice cereal, which is generally poor in fiber. So if your baby is under 6 months old and you've started solids and you notice that they're becoming constipated, it may be worth considering switching back to exclusively breastfeeding or formula feeding and seeing if it helps, and then just reintroducing solids a little while later. In toddlers, introduction of cow's milk may be the cause of hard stools in some children, and another cause is toilet training, especially if there's excessive parental pressure or if your child is feeling anxious about it. The presence of the hard stools can cause your child pain when they're trying to pass them, which in turn can lead to withholding, and that cycle that I mentioned earlier, where the stools become harder and more difficult to pass over time. In older children, constipation can be caused by your child withholding due to either pain, but also due to an unpleasant toilet facility when they're away from home, or it could also be caused by voluntary withholding just because they want to keep playing instead of going to the toilet. Constipation can also be caused by dehydration, illness, or trauma to the perianal area, or even sexual abuse. And another cause of constipation is stress. So you may see that your child has constipation around stressful life events like starting kindergarten or moving houses or the arrival of a new sibling. And constipation is also more frequent in children with neurodevelopmental disorder like autism spectrum disorder, or also as a result of certain medications. Interestingly, your parenting style may also contribute to constipation. While researching for this video, I came across an article from Dutch researchers that suggested that overprotective child-rearing attitudes tend to worsen fecal incontinence, and children of easily irritated or frustrated parents also appeared more likely to experience fecal incontinence. However, it's not fully clear whether the parenting style caused the constipation or if they were simply a result of it. When it comes to treatments, there are a few options. So first, if your child has impacted stool, disimpaction is usually the first line of treatment. And what this refers to is to getting that impacted stool out of your child. And this can be done through manual removal or enemas or suppositories or laxatives. And nowadays, laxatives are the most common used form of doing this, especially in children because they're way less invasive than all of the other options. Now, the second phase is called maintenance therapy, and the goal of this phase is to maintain the stool soft and easy to pass. So you give your child's colon and rectum time to return to their normal size and function. And stool softeners and laxatives are often used for this, and parents are often wary of them because they fear that their child may become dependent on stool softeners and laxatives to pass a normal bowel movement. So if this is a fear that you have, I encourage you to think of stool softeners and laxatives as purely a temporary solution to break the cycle of constipation. So they'll basically help the stools become softer and more easy to pass, which will reduce the pain that your child has when they go to the bathroom. And this can help prevent them from withholding, and that will help give the colon and rectum time to empty themselves and return to their normal size and to their normal function. But in order for this to happen, laxatives should definitely be used consistently, and they shouldn't be discontinued too quickly. So you basically want to make sure that your child has normal stools for about a month before you stop this treatment. So another way to think of it is that what looks like dependence when you remove the medication is not truly a dependence, but rather a sign that the gut is not ready to function on its own without assistance. So it just needs assistance for a little bit longer until it's able to do this on its own. The third phase consists of lifestyle changes, which basically refers to your child's diet, hydration, and physical activity. And when it comes to diet, fiber is really important, and you want to aim for your child to get around 19 grams of fiber if they're between 1 and 3 years old, 25 grams of fiber for 4 to 8 years old, 26 to 31 grams per day for 9 to 13-year-olds, and about the same amount as adults, which is 25 grams for females and 38 grams per males after that. You can achieve this by making sure that you offer your child fiber-rich foods at every meal and snack. And by fiber-rich foods, I mean fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, legumes, peas, lentils, beans, and all of those really great plant goodies. Now, regular physical activity can also help move things along, and I'm sometimes also asked about prebiotics and probiotics and whether they can help treat constipation in children. And while there's no strong scientific evidence showing that they do, I also don't see the harm of them. There's plenty of good reasons to make sure that you include prebiotic and probiotic-rich foods in your child's diet, and very little downsides to them. So I don't see the harm in adding some of these foods in your child's diet, and I'll put a link to an article that gives you an idea of which foods are richest in prebiotics and probiotics down in the description box below. You also want to make sure that your child is drinking enough fluids, especially water, while you're adding more fiber, because although the fiber will add bulk to the stools, it requires also some water to help them pass throughout easily. So simply try to offer your child something to drink every time that they have an eating opportunity, and make a water bottle or a glass of water or something like that available for them between meals and snacks. Finally, consider working on your child's toilet habits. So for example, you can try to encourage your child to sit on the toilet for 5 to 10 minutes each day after a specific meal. And the reason why you want to do this after a specific meal is because it takes advantage of the body's gastrocolic reflex, which is basically the reflex that the body has, or rather the colon has, to contract after a meal. So it makes it easier to pass the stool for your child. And also it can get them into the habit of, or their body into the habit of expecting to pass a stool around that time of day. You can also provide them with a footstool so that they can put their little feet on it, and this helps increase the intra-abdominal pressure while they're on the toilet, which can help them use their pelvic floor muscles more effectively when passing the stool. So to go back to the initial question that spurred on the topic of this video, at 1 year old, the child's constipation is most likely caused by either an intolerance to cow's milk. So I don't know if this mother is providing her child with cow's milk. If that's the case, she could try switching to a plant-based option that's calcium fortified, like a calcium fortified pea milk or soy milk, to see if that helps. It could also be caused by a low fiber diet or insufficient hydration. So if this is the case, I would encourage this parent to add more fiber-rich foods to her child's diet and to encourage him to drink more frequently. It's probably a good idea to limit junk foods, which are naturally low in fiber, and it may be a good idea to include foods with natural laxative properties in your child's diet, for example, prunes, chia seeds, flax seeds, kiwi fruit, rhubarb, and oats. And if you're currently using the potty with your child, I'd suggest to make it a really pleasant activity and try to do it consistently at the same time each day, without any pressure, if possible at all. And if despite all of this, your child is still experiencing issues with constipation, it might be a really good idea to go and talk to your pediatrician about using stool softeners or laxatives, at least in the beginning, to give your child a little head start and break that constipation cycle that I mentioned earlier. As for your child being a fan of legumes, that's actually great. Beans and peas and lentils are really rich in fiber, which can actually help his digestion rather than hinder it, as long as there's enough fluids also in his diet. Now, I hope that this helps. If you found this content helpful, please give it a like so it can get recommended to others. And also, if you'd like for my content to appear in your feed, I also encourage you to subscribe. And with that said, that's it for today. Until next time, ciao ciao!